Okay, let's just jump right into this because we have a lot of ground to cover. I am going to break down the impending, absolutely catastrophic evolution of Homelander, and we need to unpack exactly why this upcoming finale changes the entire power dynamic of this universe forever. Look, we are looking at a narrative shift so massive, so fundamental, that it completely rewrites the rules of engagement we've all come to rely on. This isn't just about another big superhuman brawl in the streets, you know? It is about the absolute pinnacle of power being reached. So let's take our time here, slow things down, and really map out the terrifying trajectory that's being laid out right in front of us. Let me explain right now, without wasting a single second, how a single impending event is about to turn an already terrifying soup into a literal, untouchable god. I mean, for years, we've watched these characters scramble, plot, scheme, and sacrifice absolutely everything just to find a microscopic chink in his armor, right? But today, we are analyzing a scenario where that armor becomes completely mathematically impenetrable. The narrative is aggressively moving away from a state of high-stakes conflict and plummeting straight into a realm of absolute hopelessness for anyone brave enough or foolish enough to stand in his way. Alright, Section 1, the birth of a god. To really understand the true gravity of this situation, we have to dissect what this V1 serum actually means for the lore of this world. Honestly, this is the crux of the entire nightmare. We need to get it in our heads that this is not merely some temporary boost or a quick adrenaline shot. No, it is a permanent, terrifying biological catalyst designed to completely shatter the existing ceiling of superhuman potential. It takes the very DNA that makes these beings powerful and supercharges it to an extinction-level degree. Think about it like this. If the original compound was just a spark, V1 is a raging, uncontrollable inferno. It's designed to permanently remove physical vulnerability from the equation. Period. Consider the absolutely terrifying baseline we are starting from here. His original abilities were already considered essentially impossible to counter, right? The heat vision, the supersonic flight, the indestructible skin. But V1 pushes these devastating powers to an apocalyptic next level. We aren't just talking about heat vision that melts steel anymore. Imagine heat vision that vaporizes anything it touches on a molecular level. Imagine durability that can withstand catastrophic, world-ending force without so much as a single scratch. We are looking at a literal exponential magnification of terror. We are staring down a scenario where he transcends all physical boundaries. It completely erases the few tiny vulnerabilities that ever gave anyone, even for a second, a fighting chance. To be a god among men in this universe isn't just some poetic metaphor anymore. It becomes a cold, hard, biological reality. And you know what the most terrifying aspect of true immortality is? It's how it fundamentally breaks the psychological balance of the entire world. How do you negotiate with or deter a being who mathematically cannot be destroyed? The chilling answer is, you simply can't. Which brings us to Section 2, seizing the Oval Office. Because physical dominance alone isn't enough for him, is it? Let me walk you through the horrifying implications here, because the physical upgrade is merely the key to unlocking a much, much darker door. We are looking at the strategic, step-by-step roadmap of a coup. Step 1 is securing absolute physical supremacy with V1. Once no earthly weapon can harm him, Step 2 naturally kicks in, bypassing democratic systems entirely. Look, laws and institutions only function when they can actually be enforced. But when the enforcers are entirely powerless against a single individual, the whole system just crumbles. And that leads directly to Step 3, an unmitigated, forceful seizure of the highest office in the land. He doesn't need to count ballots or worry about political filibusters when he possesses absolute, uncontested force. The absurdity of trying to use standard political maneuvering against a literal god is almost laughable at this point. I really want you to sit with this terrifying image for a second. Picture him sitting in the Oval Office and ask yourself, what actually happens when someone with zero moral compass becomes the president? The Resolute Desk is the ultimate symbol of global influence, of command over the most formidable military apparatus on Earth. Now place an immortal, deeply unstable, narcissistic entity right behind that desk. It merges the ultimate biological weapon with the ultimate institutional weapon. The checks and balances that hold society together, they don't just bend, they literally evaporate in an instant. This imagery proves we aren't just looking at a rogue, uncontrollable soup anymore. I am telling you, we are witnessing the terrifying dawn of a permanent dictatorship. A standard dictator rules through the threat of violence and military backing. But this is a dictator who is the military. There is no term limit, there is no impeachment process, and there is absolutely no rebel army capable of storming the gates to take him down. It is a locked-in state of absolute authoritarian control, driven entirely by the whims of a single, indestructible being.
Moving on to Section 3, Butcher's Broken Weapon.
Now, let me explain what this divine ascension means for our protagonist, because we have to look at the other side of the chessboard here. And this is the exact moment where all hope completely dies. The brutal reality that we must accept is that if Homelander secures this V1 upgrade, the very virus Butcher has been banking his entire existence on to eradicate Supes becomes entirely obsolete. For so long, this biological weapon was dangled in front of us as the great equalizer. It was the ace in the hole. But V1 isn't just an armor upgrade, it's a fundamental rewrite of the host's biology, completely immunizing him from the very agents designed to target standard Supe DNA.
Imagine the sheer psychological horror of this realization. I see this as the definitive moment they understand they have permanently lost their ultimate leverage. Think about Butcher for a second. This is a man who has sacrificed his morality, alienated his friends, and shredded pieces of his own soul to engineer this one final solution. He has crossed lines that can never, ever be uncrossed, all for this specific endgame. To stand at the absolute precipice of executing that plan, only to realize the target has biologically evolved past it? Wow. It is a soul-crushing defeat that leaves them scrambling in the dark with literally nothing left in their arsenal.
Let me break down this devastating tactical failure, because it's a cascade of disasters. The virus was supposed to be the silver bullet. Step 1. They relied entirely on this single point of failure. It was all or nothing. Step 2. They unexpectedly encounter the V1 countermeasure, a massive, unforeseen evolutionary leap. And Step 3 is total, unmitigated tactical failure. When your entire years-long strategy hinges on a single vulnerability, and that vulnerability is suddenly patched out of existence, your entire campaign collapses. They are left completely defenseless in the face of a literal apocalyptic threat.
And this is exactly why we see a heavily fortified bomb site protecting the V1. This location is essentially ground zero for the future of humanity. The extreme security and the heavily militarized presence scream that the powers that be understand exactly what is contained within those walls. It's not just some underground laboratory. It is a fortress guarding the holy grail of absolute power. And it perfectly sets the stage for the most desperate, do-or-die infiltration you could possibly imagine.
Which leads us to our final part, Section 4, the Soldier Boy Setup. This brings me to the final, most desperate gamble of the entire narrative. On the surface, it really looks like an epic clash is coming, with Butcher and Soldier Boy seemingly uniting to fight off this immortal threat before it's too late. It plays right into the classic enemy of my enemy scenario. Two incredibly dangerous, highly morally compromised individuals forced into an alliance of pure necessity. It gives us this fleeting, almost intoxicating glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, brute force and sheer willpower might be enough to halt the apocalypse before the serum is successfully deployed.
But let me pose the most crucial, deeply unsettling question of this entire breakdown. Can we really, truly trust that Soldier Boy's allegiance is actually against Homelander? We have to step back and remember the complex, deeply twisted history between these characters. Soldier Boy is a relic of a completely different era. He is driven entirely by ego, pride, and intensely self-serving motivations. His actions are rarely, if ever, pure. To blindly trust that he is fully committed to Butcher's desperate crusade is to willfully ignore every single red flag this universe has ever shown us.
Because if you look closely at the twisted psychological manipulation constantly at play in this world, I genuinely believe this supposed alliance might just be a devastating premeditated setup. Think about it. What if the path to the bomb site was left open on purpose? What if Soldier Boy has already made a quiet backroom deal to secure his own survival or to guarantee his own place in this new world order? In a world where deception is the primary currency, a convenient, last-minute alliance is almost certainly a Trojan horse designed to lure Butcher right out into the open. A betrayal from Soldier Boy wouldn't just be a simple shocking plot twist. Let me be clear. It would be the final, fatal blow that permanently cements Homelander's untouchable reign. It strips Butcher of his absolutely only remaining physical asset, isolating him entirely. It is the ultimate narrative cruelty, giving the protagonist the illusion of a fighting chance, making them believe they can win, only to have it ripped away by someone they were forced to trust. It seals their fate not with some grand, glorious battle, but with a quiet, devastating knife to the back. So I leave you to ponder this chilling, inescapable reality as we wrap up this explainer. If the virus is dead, the Oval Office is conquered, and their only remaining ally is actually a deadly trap, how do you stop a god? We have meticulously walked through the systematic dismantling of every single hope, weapon, and strategy the protagonists possessed. The board has been entirely cleared, and as we look toward this harrowing conclusion, that is the terrifying question that remains entirely unanswered. Let that sink in.